Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's discussion is focused on English vocabulary listening practice. The topic name is shadowing, 25 plus C1 level vocabulary on books.
Yeah, this is really a deep dive, isn't it? It's designed specifically for you, the advanced English learner, people aiming for that C1 level. We're here to give you the language tools you need.
Exactly. Tools to elevate your discussions about books, moving beyond just casual appreciation into, well, sophisticated literary analysis.
We're definitely moving past simple plot summaries or basic character descriptions today. I mean, if you're working towards C1 proficiency, you need to be able to articulate the why and the how of storytelling, right?
Absolutely. It's about stepping into the mindset of a literary analyst. And that means knowing the specific terms for narrative structure, for genre, for, assessing published works critically.
So proficiency at this level isn't just about understanding what you read. No, not at all. It's really about expression. This specific vocabulary, this lexicon, it lets you articulate complex thoughts about authorship, decipher subtle symbolism, and really dissect how plots are built.
So we're kind of bridging the gap between just reading a story and understanding the actual craft behind it.
That's a great way to put it, understanding the craft.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack this high-level vocabulary. We've structured this deep dive into four main areas. First up, decoding meaning, like symbolism and stuff.
Yeah, okay. Then second, we'll look at how we categorize things, genres, formats.
Third, the process itself, writing, editing, the physical book.
And finally, we'll cover how we describe the reader's experience, those qualitative words.
Sounds good. Let's not waste any more time then. Let's jump right into section 1, decoding narrative and symbolism. Okay, so we're starting with the core tools writers use, the techniques to embed deeper meaning, the things that make you want to reread and think critically. We're focusing first on allegory and symbolism. Hashtag 1.1, the power of deeper meaning, allegory and symbolism.
Let's kick off with allegory. It's a noun. Basically, it's a story or maybe a poem or even a piece of art where the characters and events are like carefully constructed symbols.
Symbols representing bigger ideas, right? Like abstract concepts, moral qualities, maybe even historical events.
Precisely. And the key thing here, the really crucial point, is that it's a sustained symbolic representation. It runs through the whole work.
Sustained. Okay, so it's not just one little symbol here or there. The entire structure is coded. Like George Orwell's Animal Farm comes to mind immediately.
Perfect example. It's essential to get that it's not just, a simple story about animals taking over a farm.
No, it's a full-blown allegory for the Russian Revolution. Each animal, the pigs, Boxer the horse, they all stand for specific political figures or social classes.
Exactly. And that structural element, that's what makes it different from just, say, a metaphor. An allegory like Animal Farm works as political satire because the author uses these stand-in characters, animals, instead of people, to critique historical events without being completely direct.
So the reader has to decode it, piece it together.
Right. You have to recognize the consistent code. And academically, you might hear synonyms like parable, especially if the goal is moral teaching, or maybe fable if it's a simpler story, often with animals.
And this is why C1 learners really need this term. You go from saying, oh, this book is about politics, to something much more precise, like the novel employs a complex allegory to critique the corruption of revolutionary ideals. Much sharper analysis.
Definitely. Now let's contrast that with symbolism, also a noun. Symbolism is, broader. It's the general use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities, particularly in literature and art.
So allegory is actually a type of symbolism then, a very organized, extended type.
You got it. Symbolism can be much more localized. It doesn't have to permeate the entire work in the same way an allegory does.
Okay, like the classic example people always use for The Great Gatsby, the green light at the end of Daisy's dock.
Exactly. That green light is a potent symbol, isn't it? Represents Gatsby's unattainable dream, the American dream, maybe. But the whole novel isn't necessarily an allegory for that dream. It's a powerful, recurring symbol within the narrative.
Right, it's focused.
And symbolism is everywhere, really. Think about poetry. Poets use nature symbolism all the time. A thick fog might represent confusion, or a barren landscape could symbolize emotional emptiness.
Or religious art using icons.
Precisely. Using specific images as symbols to convey complex spiritual ideas almost instantly. So mastering symbolism lets you analyze why an author chose a specific object or image and what specific idea they're trying to convey with it. Hashtag 1.2, unpacking character and viewpoint. backstory in first person.
All right, let's shift gears a bit.
Right.
Like, abstract meaning to, well, the characters themselves. We need to talk about backstory. That's the noun for all the stuff that happened to characters before the main story even starts.
Ah, backstory. It's basically the engine driving a character's motivation, isn't it? Without a decent backstory, characters can feel really flat, just kind of there. Unbelievable.
Yeah, like if you have a villain doing terrible things, you need something to explain it. Not excuse it, but explain it.
Exactly. A detailed backstory, maybe some deep trauma, a betrayal, something significant helps explain their current actions. It adds that layer of depth, makes them feel more well-rounded and believable, even if they're unlikable. It's how writers shortcut building complex characters.
And authors often don't just dump the backstory on you, they weave it in, right? Using flashbacks, perhaps.
Yes, flashbacks are a common device. The plot pauses, and we're shown a critical moment from the protagonist's past. Maybe the event that shaped their whole personality, or the failure that's driving their current goals. It's vital for making the character feel credible.
Speaking of credibility, that brings us nicely to perspective. Let's talk about first person. That's the adjective for when the narrator is telling their own story, using I or we.
First-person narrative. It's probably the fastest route to creating a sense of intimacy between the reader and the character, and building empathy.
Like in memoirs, right? It feels like a personal confession, unfiltered. You're pulled right into their subjective experience.
Absolutely. But, and this is where C1 analysis gets interesting with a first-person narrative, you always have to consider the possibility of the unreliable narrator.
Ah, good point. Because you're only seeing things through their eyes.
Precisely. You're limited to their perspective, their biases, their memories, which might be faulty. Maybe even their deliberate omissions. You constantly have to ask, is their backstory coloring how they tell the story? Are they being entirely honest?
So maintaining that critical distance is essential when analyzing a first-person narrative. You can't just take everything they say at face value.
Not at the C1 level, no. You have to evaluate the narrator just as much as the story they're telling. Hashtag tag 1.3 navigating narrative surprises. Ironis and twist.
Okay, let's move on to how writers play with our expectations, deliberately subverting things, building suspense. Let's tackle ironic phase. It's an adjective, meaning you say the opposite of what you mean, or in literature, it describes a situation that's the opposite of what you'd expect.
Yeah, ironic is a bit tricky because it has layers. We should probably distinguish between, say, 3 main types here for clarity.
Okay.
First, there's verbal irony. That's the conversational kind, like sarcasm, saying, oh, lovely weather when it's pouring rain. Maybe used to lighten the mood, you know?
Right, the everyday kind.
Then there's dramatic irony. This is common in plays, especially. It's when the audience knows something crucial that a character on stage doesn't know. Creates tension, suspense, sometimes tragedy.
Okay, audience knows more than the character.
Got it.
And the third.
Situational irony. And this is probably the most relevant when we're talking about plot structure. It's when the actual outcome of events is the complete opposite or a stark reversal of what was expected or intended.
Ah, the big twist of fate kind of irony.
Exactly. And situational irony can be really powerful. It often makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Because it highlights how unpredictable life or fate can be. Think of a character who spends their whole life trying desperately to avoid a certain outcome, only for their very actions to bring that outcome about.
Yeah, that's classic tragic irony. It sticks with you because it feels, well, profound somehow.
It does. Which leads us naturally to the twist. A noun. Simply put, an unexpected turn in the plot. A surprise.
A deliberate narrative bomb dropped by the author.
Pretty much. A twist is designed to shock the reader, maybe force them to completely reevaluate everything they thought they knew about the story so far, or it can just radically change the direction the plot is heading.
You know, the best twists, I find, are the ones that were subtly set up earlier, foreshadowed.
Oh, absolutely. A bad twist feels like it comes out of nowhere, like the author cheated. But a great twist. It makes you immediately want to flip back to the beginning and see the clues you missed.
Yeah, you realize they were there all along. That's clever writing.
It really is, and certain genres rely heavily on this. Mystery novels, for example, are practically built around the expectation of that big reveal, that final twist that solves everything.
The success hinges on the author leading you down the garden path. Right.
Completely. Making the eventual surprise feel both shocking and somehow inevitable in hindsight. That's what creates those cult followings for certain books or films that shared, wow, I did not see that coming moment.
Okay, great stuff. We've looked at how meaning gets built inside the story. Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about how we categorize these narratives. We're getting into genres, different structural formats, and also works meant for performance. Hashtag 2.1, expanding the story, sequel and trilogy. First off, the reality of successful stories today is, well, they often don't stop at just one book or film. Let's talk about the sequel. That's the noun for a follow-up, a continuation.
Right. Sequels, they kind of exist at this interesting crossroads, don't they? Between narrative need and, let's be honest, commercial opportunity.
Yeah, sometimes the story genuinely leaves big questions unanswered, or you want to explore the consequences of what happened. That feels like a narrative reason.
Exactly. Resolving loose ends, deepening the world or characters. But then there's the other side, capitalizing on a hit. Hollywood especially loves sequels for successful franchises. It's often driven by the potential for profit, sometimes more than artistic necessity.
So the C1 level conversation shouldn't just be, was the sequel good? It should be more like, did this sequel actually add something meaningful to the original story, or did it feel a bit like, a rehash just for money?
That's the critical question, and it's tough for authors. Maintaining consistency with the characters and the world while also raising the stakes and telling a new compelling story. It's a real balancing act.
And when one sequel isn't enough, you often get a trilogy, the noun for a 3-part series, usually linked by subject or characters.
Ah, the trilogy. Very common, especially in fantasy and sci-fi. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings is probably the classic example that springs to mind for most people.
Definitely. And that structure, the 3 acts, allows for incredibly complex plots to unfold over a much longer arc, doesn't it?
It really does. Typically, the first book sets up the world, the characters, the main conflict. The second book often deepens things, raises the stakes, maybe explores the dark middle, and sometimes suffers from being just a bridge to the finale.
Yeah, the tricky second book syndrome.
Right. And then the third book is supposed to bring it all home, resolve the major conflicts, deliver the climax. When an author plans a trilogy from the outset, rather than just adding sequels later, you can really see it.
How so?
They can weave in these intricate plot threads or bits of foreshadowing early on that only really pay off books later. It shows a commitment to a grander scope, a long-term vision, which is generally well regarded. Hashtag 2.2, the appeal of crime and mystery.
Okay, let's switch genres now and dive into why crime stories are so enduringly popular. We should probably distinguish between stories based on real events and fictional puzzles. Let's compare true crime and whodunit.
Good distinction. True crime, the noun, refers to that genre focused entirely on factual accounts of real crimes. The investigation, the people involved, the aftermath, it's all supposed to be based on reality.
And its popularity has just exploded in recent years, hasn't it? Podcasts, documentaries, books.
It really has. I think part of the appeal is that it offers this glimpse into the darker side of human psychology, but from a safe distance. And it taps into our fascination with motives and justice.
And it's often more than just morbid curiosity, isn't it? A lot of modern true crime actually serves as social commentary.
Very much so. Good true crime often meticulously exposes flaws in the justice system or highlights societal issues, biases. Maybe it brings attention back to cold cases. It can compel society to confront uncomfortable truths. It's not just entertainment. It often has a purpose.
Right. Now, contrast that factual, quite grim exploration with the whodunit. Also a noun, but this is pure fiction, pure entertainment.
Exactly. The whodunit is essentially a mystery thriller constructed as a puzzle. The whole point is that the identity of the criminal is kept hidden until the very end. It's a game between the author and the reader.
And the fun is trying to figure it out yourself, right? Following the clues.
Absolutely. Authors like Agatha Christie were masters of this. They give you all the pieces, the suspects, the clues, the red herrings, but they arrange them in such a way that the solution is obscured until that final dramatic reveal by the detective.
So the reader is actively playing along, trying to solve the crime. It's that intellectual challenge that defines the genre, I think.
It really is. It's a very specific kind of reader engagement compared to the more analytical, sometimes sociological engagement you get with true crime. Hashtag 2.3, dramatic structure and form.
Let's pivot now to works designed for performance, for the stage or screen. Starting with a word describing a particular emotional weight. Tragic. That's the adjective for something that evokes deep sadness, usually involving suffering, disaster, or death.
When we use tragic in a literary or dramatic context, it often connects back to the classical idea, maybe Aristotle's definition. It usually involves the downfall of a significant character, often due to some inherent flaw, their hamarche.
Like in Shakespeare's tragedies.
Yeah.
Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello.
Exactly. Those plays are enduring because they explore these fundamental human flaws: ambition, indecision, jealousy, and show how they lead to devastating, often unavoidable consequences.
So a tragic ending isn't just sad, it's meant to feel almost inevitable, given the character's nature and the situation.
Right. And the intended effect is often catharsis, that purging of pity and fear in the audience. It prompts reflection on fate, responsibility, the human condition. So calling a work tragic identifies it with a very powerful ancient narrative tradition.
And the person who crafts these intense experiences, particularly for the stage, is the dramatist or playwright, a noun for someone who writes scripts.
Yes, scripts for theater, but also potentially for radio, TV, even film sometimes, though screenwriter is more common there.
It's a unique skill set, isn't it, writing for performance?
Very much so. Playwrights have to rely almost entirely on dialogue and stage directions. They don't have the luxury of lengthy descriptive passages like a novelist. The dialogue has to sound real, but also carry all the plot, character development, theme, everything.
So much depends on wit, subtext, the rhythm of the language.
Absolutely. It's a very concentrated form of storytelling. And aspiring playwrights often focus on getting their work performed, submitting scripts to festivals, workshops, because the text really comes alive in performance.
Okay, one more format to cover in this section, something visual and often underestimated, the comic strip. Sequential art, drawings in boxes, usually with captions or speech bubbles.
Right, often found in newspapers traditionally, now online too. And while they might seem simple, comic strips can have a huge cultural impact.
Yeah, think of classics like Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes.
Exactly. They weren't just disposable entertainment. They influenced generations of artists and writers. They showed how you could use this very economical format, just a few panels, minimal text, to explore complex characters, relationships, even philosophical ideas, often with humor.
It's a great example of how combining image and text can be really effective.
Definitely. Shows the power of concise visual storytelling.
All right, moving on. Now we're going behind the scenes a bit, looking at the process of creating books and the actual physical objects themselves. Section 3, covering collaboration, refinement, and the book's structure. Hashtag 3.1 writing, collaboration, and refinement. You know, we often think of writing as this solitary activity, but especially in modern publishing, there's a lot of collaboration. Let's start with co-author, the verb meaning to write something, like a book or article, together with someone else.
Right. And co-authoring happens for different reasons in different fields. In academia, for instance, it's very common. Scientists often co-author research papers because projects require diverse expertise. It's about sharing the work and the credit.
And in fiction.
In commercial fiction, you might see two authors team up, maybe on a thriller series. One might be brilliant at plotting intricate mysteries, the other a master of snappy dialogue. They combine their strengths, hoping to produce a bestseller.
So when we're analyzing a co-authored work at a C1 level, we might discuss whether it feels like a unified voice or if you can kind of tell where one author stopped and the other started.
That's a key point of analysis, yes. Does it feel seamless or disjointed? Successful co-authoring requires real synergy.
Okay, so once the writing or co-writing is done, the next critical step is refinement, which brings us to proofread. The verb meaning to read through written work very carefully to find and correct mistakes.
Proofreading. Absolutely essential. An editor will proofread a manuscript meticulously, looking not just for typos or grammatical errors, but also for inconsistencies, like, does a character's eye color suddenly change halfway through? Did the timeline get messed up?
Stuff the author might miss because they're too close to it.
Exactly. And it's a practical skill for C1 learners too, isn't it? Always proofread important emails, reports, academic essays. Little errors can really undermine your credibility.
Definitely. Now, while the author is writing, a major focus is on characterization. That's the noun for the whole process. The techniques a writer uses to make their characters seem real, believable, three-dimensional.
Characterization is arguably what brings a novel to life. It's how the author portrays or depicts the people in the story. Strong characterization often follows the show-don't-tell principle.
Right. Instead of just telling us a character is brave, the author shows them doing something brave.
Precisely. And we can analyze characterization by looking at whether characters are round, meaning complex, capable of surprising us, maybe changing over time, or flat, simpler, perhaps serving a single function in the plot. Good characterization is what makes us connect with and care about the people in the story.
It builds that empathy.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, another creative process term, compose. Now, this verb usually makes us think of music, right? Mozart composing symphonies.
Yeah, writing music.
And that's its primary meaning. But it can be used a bit more broadly, especially in the arts, to mean putting elements together carefully to create a unified whole.
So you wouldn't typically say someone composed a novel?
Probably not composed a novel, no. Wrote is standard. But you might talk about an artist composing a striking layout for a graphic novel page, arranging the panels and images, or maybe even a writer composing a particularly lyrical or carefully structured paragraph. It emphasizes the artistry, the deliberate construction.
Okay, so it implies a bit more artful arrangement than just writing. Got it. Hashtag 3.2, the book's anatomy and format. Let's shift now to the actual structure of published works, the physical thing, starting with the blueprint for performance, the script, the written text for a film, play, TV show, etc.
Yeah, the script is a fascinating form because it's not really complete in itself. It's a working document meant to be interpreted and brought to life through performance.
Directors might revise it for pacing. Actors use it to learn lines and action.
Exactly. And screenwriters especially need to master a very specific technical format, scene headings, dialogue layout, action descriptions. It's a specialized skill, different from writing prose.
Okay, then when you actually get the finished book, you open it up, and near the front, you find the title page. The page with the book's full title, the author's name.
And usually the publisher's name and logo, too. It's more than just information, though. The design of the title page, the typography, the layout contributes to the book's overall aesthetic feel, especially in, nicely produced editions.
And it's got the key info for librarians, booksellers, anyone cataloging it.
Essential bibliographic information, yes. Now, let's talk about the physical formats themselves. The two big ones, hardcover book versus paperback book. Let's start with hardcover, defined by that stiff, rigid cover.
Right, the sturdy ones.
Okay.
Often with a dust jacket.
Yeah. Hardcovers generally signal quality, durability. Collectors often prefer them because they last longer, they look good on a shelf. Libraries rely on them because they can withstand repeated borrowing much better than paperbacks.
And they usually come out first, don't they? The more expensive version.
Typically, yes. It's often the initial release aimed at the most eager fans in libraries. It suggests the publisher thinks the book has lasting value.
Then later, usually, comes the paperback with the flexible, softer cover.
Right, the paperback or soft cover. This is the mass market format. The big advantages are cost. They're much cheaper to produce and sell, making the book accessible to more people, and they're lighter, more portable. Ideal for taking on a commute or a trip.
So it's a strategic decision by the publisher. Hardcover first for the premium market, then paperback maybe 6 months or a year later for wider reach.
That's a very common publishing strategy, yes. Maximizes revenue across different market segments.
Okay, one more term relating to the book's structure, and this one needs care. Appendix.
Ah, yes. Crucial distinction needed here. In the context we're discussing C1 vocabulary about books, the appendix is the extra material you find right at the very end of a book.
Supplementary stuff, right? Like maps, glossaries, maybe data tables or historical notes.
Exactly. Things that support the main text but would interrupt the flow if they were placed within it. It provides extra context or depth for interested readers.
BUT. And this is the important C1 point. Appendix also has a completely different medical meaning.
It certainly does. The small, finger-like pouch attached to the large intestine, completely unrelated. You might talk about someone having appendicitis needing surgery to remove their appendix.
So context is absolutely everything here. In a literary discussion, appendix means end of book material. In a medical discussion, it means part of the digestive system.
Precisely. It's a perfect example of a homonym, same spelling, same pronunciation, totally different meanings. And at an advanced level, you need to be absolutely clear which meaning is relevant based on the topic. Using it correctly shows you understand that nuance.
Okay, we've covered how stories are built, categorized, and produced. For our final section, let's focus on the experience of reading itself, the qualitative side. We're looking at C1 adjectives used to describe a book's impact and quality. Hashtag 4.1, engaging the mind and emotions.
Right. Let's start with intriguing. An adjective meaning something is fascinating, maybe because it's unusual or mysterious or doesn't have an easy answer. It suggests something that really grabs your intellectual curiosity.
So an intriguing plot keeps you hooked because you want to figure it out. It keeps presenting puzzles or possibilities.
Exactly. It makes you want to know more. And you can also talk about intriguing characters, characters who are complex, maybe ambiguous, hard to pin down. They spark discussion because their motives aren't immediately obvious. They make you think.
Okay. Similar, but maybe more with the pacing and intensity, is gripping. An adjective describing something so exciting or interesting that it just completely holds your attention. Riveting, engrossing.
Yes, gripping implies you can't put it down. It has you on the edge of your seat. We often use it for thrillers, maybe, where there are constant twists and high stakes. Page turners?
Or even a really compelling memoir, maybe a survival story. The tension keeps you absolutely hooked.
Definitely. It speaks to the author's ability to maintain suspense and momentum throughout the narrative. It's about that feeling of being totally absorbed.
Next up, appealing, meaning attractive or enticing. This feels a bit broader, maybe.
It can be. Appealing can refer to the surface level, like an appealing cover design might catch your eye in a bookstore. That's more about marketing, presentation.
But it can be deeper too, right? Like appealing theme.
Absolutely. An appealing theme is one that resonates widely with readers. Maybe it taps into universal human experiences: love, loss, the search for meaning, the struggle for justice. These themes are appealing because they feel relevant and relatable across different audiences, young or old.
So it can be about the ideas in the book being attractive or engaging on a fundamental level.
Precisely. It hits a chord with people. Hashtag 4.2, the lasting impact.
All right, let's wrap up with perhaps the highest praise we can give a book's long-term effect. Inspirational. That adjective describing something that provides new ideas, motivates you, maybe encourages self-discovery or creativity.
Yes, inspirational suggests the book has an impact beyond just entertainment or intellectual engagement. It actually sparks something in the reader.
Like an inspirational biography might motivate someone to start their own business or overcome a personal challenge.
Exactly. Or a novel with a powerful message might resonate so deeply that it encourages readers to reflect on their own lives, maybe make changes or see the world differently. It fosters personal growth.
So it moves beyond just enjoying the story into the realm of actual, life impact, transformation almost.
That's a good way to think about it. It's the difference between a book you liked and forgot and a book that genuinely shifted your perspective or motivated you to act. That kind of resonance is often what makes a book not just good, but culturally significant. Hashtag tag outro.
Well, that brings us to the end of this pretty extensive exploration of the C1 literary lexicon. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From the structure of an allegory
To the difference between a hardcover and a paperback.
Right. Hopefully you now feel better equipped with the specialized vocabulary needed to proofread critical analyses or write your own discussing complex, gripping narratives.
And to really articulate why certain books feel so appealing or why others leave you feeling genuinely inspirational.
Yeah, understanding the why.
And I think the real takeaway here, the true value, isn't just knowing the definitions. It's about applying these terms. Try using them actively when you talk or write about what you're reading. Analyze how the author built the backstory or evaluate the effectiveness of their characterization.
Putting the knowledge into practice.
Exactly. That's when it becomes truly useful, when it enriches your own critical thinking and engagement with literature and really with complex ideas in general.
Well said. We really hope this deep dive into the world of books through the lens of this C1 vocabulary has been valuable and maybe even, dare I say, inspirational for your own language learning journey.
Let's hope so.
And if this literary lexicon exploration did provide value, we'd be really grateful if you could remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It helps others find this content too.
Definitely helps.
So until our next deep dive, keep reading, keep thinking critically, and keep analyzing. Bye for now.